Welcome everyone to today's GLF Live. My name is Francisco and I am the event moderator for the GLF. We are thrilled to have you join us for this important discussion on food systems and landscape restoration, an essential step in addressing climate change and biodiversity loss. Our planet, as you may know, faces unprecedented challenges, and the way we produce, distribute, and consume food is a crucial factor in overcoming them. To achieve this transformation, we need to explore a wide range of tools, and one of the most exciting possibilities is artificial intelligence. On September 17, the GLF will have an event called GLF Africa, a global conference to find out how Africa can navigate the future of three shifting landscapes. One of them is forest and savannas, drylands, freshwater, and oceans. This global event is free for everyone online, and you can check our website for more information. Today's interview is organized in the context of GLF Africa, and this discussion will keep going as we have planned a plenary session on AI during that same event. Across Africa and beyond, we're seeing AI being applied to agriculture and landscape restoration, offering innovative ways to tackle these pressing issues. However, AI is not without its challenges. From the energy it consumes to concerns over data privacy and the ethics of machine learning. These are the complex dynamics we will explore today, asking whether AI is a powerful tool that can accelerate food system transformation, or, a tool that is more challenging that might complicate our path forward. And for this discussion, we will have some topics around the governance and ethical implications of using AI in landscape restoration and food system transformation, as well as the opportunities for Africa and beyond. We are honored to be joined by three incredible speakers today. The first one being Tlamelo Tamaki, a PhD researcher in inclusive AI, research lead at Anton Tech, and a certified mechatronics engineer. She is also leading the charge in using AI and drones to address agricultural problems across Africa and beyond. Then we have Isaac Rutenberg. He is an intellectual property advisor at CIFOR-ICRAF and associate professor of ICT policy and innovation at Strathmore University. Isaac brings deep expertise in the intersection of AI, agriculture, and climate change with extensive research in data governance and AI ethics. And then we have Nchimunya Munyama. He is the CEO of Netagrow and co-founder of Passion for Greens. His innovating work uses AI and IoT to help farmers optimize their operations alongside his efforts in youth empowerment and sustainability. We hope you enjoy the discussion and gain valuable insights into the role AI can play in creating a sustainable future for food systems and landscapes. Thank you for joining us, and please feel free to be part of the conversation by asking questions on YouTube, LinkedIn, or X to our speakers under the hashtag GLFAfrica, since we will be reading some of these questions. So with no further ado, let's get started. And I wanted to start with Mrs. Makati and ask you, since you're a researcher using AI and drones to address agricultural problems across Africa and beyond, what are these AI tools and how it has been used?
Thank you so much for the invitation. So I am part of a startup called Anton Tech. It's an applied AI research company. And what we're trying to do, we are using AI technologies like deep learning and also incorporating drone technology for precision agriculture, basically. So what our technology is doing, first of all, we are scouting farms to be able to get data of these farms on how we can improve farming and also how we can collaborate with other stakeholders that work with farmers, like the agronomists, like the government institutions, to know how can they, with using these data, how can they help the farmers. Secondly, our data also uses the concept of ChatGPT. You know how ChatGPT, you can just ask it a question. If you're at home and you just have a phone, a smartphone, you can take a picture of your plants at your small farm or large scale farm, and you can ask our model like, okay, what's wrong with this plant, or what is this plant, or is it a weed? And our technology will be able to tell you this is what the plant is it a weed or not? Or even simple things like, how is the weather tomorrow? How is the weather today? Is it good for me to start plowing now or maybe in the next month? Yeah.
Interesting. And in that regards, I wanted to ask Isaac, since we're discussing about data and how are we using these machine learning models to gather this information, about data privacy and the ethics of machine learning, since they are often discussed in the AI space. What are the learnings that we have from this, and how can we ensure that development and implementation of these tools are ethical?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question and also for the invitation to speak today, this evening here in Nairobi. So AI is data is so to the development of any AI tool. Just so a lot of and if my connection is bad, that's the best I can. Well, there are many different issues around data, et cetera, but also, as you mentioned, privacy. And, a lot of the data that people are using to train AI systems are personal data that we collect from individuals. And many of the countries in Africa and across the world now have data protection laws and policies around what sort of data can be used and how it can be used. And so, a lot of challenges for building an AI system come about in making sure that you comply with those laws while still getting the kinds of data that you need. And I'll just add one other thing that each of the countries' laws may differ. So, what is personal data? Even the definition of what is personal data might differ from one country to another. Kenya has a somewhat unique definition of data, but it's mostly the same as you would find in other countries. But there are, subtle differences that are important. If you don't use data consistent with the law, then obviously you can get into a lot of that. So, and also one last thing, ethically, some companies, the New York Times did a big expose where they determined that a lot of companies just kind of don't even bother to pay attention to the laws, get data in any way that they can, and in many ways that's not an ethical practice. So thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. And I'm gonna stick to the point that you made last, that a lot of companies don't pay attention to the laws, and that creates an ethical use of AI and machine learning. And that's my next question to you, Nchimunya. I wanted to ask you, how do you see, since you're working in agriculture and to help farmers to optimize their operations, how do you see an ethical use of AI in this field? And for Africa's development as well.
Thank you so much once again for allowing me to be here. I would agree with what Isaac shared because each country has different rules and laws around the data protection. But before I share that, just to give a brief background of what I do, I run a company called Netagrow. So basically, we leverage technology and help farmers make the right decisions using AI. So our role or our business model, or basically our work, is in line with what my other speaker, Makati, shared, where you allow farmers to interact with an AI tool that can also interpret that information in a local language. So basically, we help them with the disease identification, to have a virtual assistant on the go, at the same time have that translated into a local language, and also connect them to the agro provider or the agro service provider within their location. So one of our challenges that we faced is actually data. In Zambia, or let me say in my country, we do not have enough data. So most of the times we see these businesses or companies leveraging other people's data they use other people's data, let's say a different model or maybe a case study in the USA, translate it to, or use it to, maybe to use them in a different country. So you find that there are so many discrepancies here because what might have worked in another country not work in actually my country. When it comes to the data issues, I'd like to mention that my country, Zambia, has a data act that is to localize all data that we are using for business, for government. So everybody has to have their data localized. And in terms of AI, we also have, I think they're working on a policy around AI. So we've seen countries like Zambia actively taking part in trying to manage the data within the country. And by law, we're supposed to abide by that. So in terms of data protection, it is very much sensitive because we're dealing with people's data. And if we are to be collecting data, let's say a name of a farmer or a phone number or geographical data, we have to be aligned with the law itself. And that has been actually a barrier for many businesses because just for you to align yourself with that Data Protection Act, you have to go through all these bureaucratical hurdles for you to actually be compliant at the end of the day. So it's a challenge, but I think we're heading in the right direction.
Now that you mentioned that there are, some challenges in regard of data privacy and how each country manages this and how that becomes some sort of a barrier to some businesses, I wanted to ask both of you, Mrs. Makati and Mrs. Munyama, what are the challenges did you encounter when trying to apply advanced technologies like AI and drones in some cases in agricultural settings, especially in rural areas of Africa, aside from data, of course, and privacy, but yeah.
Okay, I will take it up. Yeah, so one of the challenges that we have faced in our own business is the accessibility to internet. So AI currently relies on access to internet. And when you look at the countries in Africa, most of them don't have that penetration rate, where in the rural areas, not everybody has a smartphone. They might have a feature phone, but they do not have access to internet. So that has been also a barrier for adoption of these tools because already the infrastructure does not allow us to actually penetrate those areas. So that is one of the big challenges because I would say Zambia has over 1 million farmers, and a small fraction are those in urban areas, but majority of them are in the rural areas. And Zambia survives on 70% of its agriculture produce to actually grow. So we've been trying to innovate around creating a tool that actually supports farmers offline. And we are currently working on an IoT device that completely works offline using a different technology. So we've been working with other partners, government, and also international partners that are helping us actually create this tool. But it's still a very huge challenge in terms of accessibility to infrastructure and internet itself.
I think in our case, we took a different route because we understand that people are skeptical about AI systems, about how they work, and especially when you're using a drone, like people are scared that you're taking pictures of them and all that. So what we started with was working with government entities that already have access to these farmers, and the farmers already have, like, there's a built-in trust between the government institution that fund them and the farmers trust that their data is protected. So we are currently collaborating with a government institution back home that sponsors these farmers. They already have the data. What we're doing is giving them a platform to put this data somewhere that will be safe. And then we cannot do anything without permission from the government and also from the farmers. So they have to be onboarded through the government before they can use our platform. We are doing this so that we build trust and saying this entity gives you money to, for your farms, and this is what we want to do with your data to help better improve your farming experience. And in that way, then we can branch down to like smaller farms or individuals who would like to use our technology. But yes, for now, what we're doing is collaborating with government entities that already have access to this data and to the farmers, so that they help us build the relationship about how to use our technology with them. And one thing that we're always doing is also explaining how our AI system works, giving examples of what we will do with that data and what are the results and where we are storing that data. I think that also is important when you are dealing with small communities that actually don't know how AI works. It's always good to include explainability in your models. Be transparent about how you are using that data, where this data is going, and how will that affect them if that data is leaked.
Transparency, possible impacts, and being approachable also with the connections or partnerships already created by governmental institutions. I think that's very key. So thank you for that. And now that we're mentioning, how to work with government institutions and how to approach community, I wanted to ask Isaac, since you work at the intersection of AI, agriculture, and climate change, how do you see AI reshaping the way that we approach agroforestry and to some extent climate resilience, particularly in regions like Africa?
All right, thanks for the question. I hope my network is better now. I think it's well, it's definitely yet to be seen how the long-term impacts. I can tell you that from a short-term impact, it's definitely exposing some, can I say, shortcomings or challenges that I think were already mentioned by Mr. Munyama. For example, data sufficiency. The number of weather stations, for example, in Africa is significantly lower than the number of weather stations in, for example, Europe. And so collecting a good data set is very challenging. Now, that's both a challenge and perhaps an opportunity as well. For one thing, it's an opportunity for people to collect that data, but it's also an opportunity for computer scientists to explore ways of maybe using smaller data sets and doing the same amount of work, or at least building an AI that is a system that is sufficient, maybe not as good as it could be, but sufficient for the purpose. And so that sort of exploration is definitely happening throughout the continent. So I think that beyond the challenges, obviously, I think that the opportunity also is that some of these processes, some of these challenges, climate change in particular, but it's not the only one, environmental crisis, are incredibly complex, and it really requires expertise from many different fields, and to be working closely with computer scientists is a good thing, I think, for most of these challenges. I think getting a lot of different thoughts and input from different fields of science and technology, that's only going to be good in the long run. So I think having a lot of different people turn their attention to these challenges ultimately is going to be good, and it allows us to build better solutions, hopefully. But I think, like I said, a lot of this is yet to be seen. The issues evolve very rapidly, so we need to continue to keep our focus and determine good solutions that can be implemented by policymakers and those who are actually in charge of these systems.
In that regard, since it's evolving rapidly and way faster than we can handle it as individuals, and with your work in spanning law, Isaac, and spanning law, AI, and climate change, what advice would you give to aspiring innovators and researchers looking to make an impact at the intersection of these fields, especially when it comes to ethics?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So the law and ethics are two different things, right? Law is the law, and it's what's on the books in different countries. And so it's relatively easy to tell what is legal and what is not. Ethics is a totally different thing. What is ethical and what is not? I mean, everything that's illegal is obviously also unethical by virtue of being illegal, but not everything that's unethical is illegal. So I think like I said, we should have many different minds coming together to discuss these issues. And I think that goes beyond science as well, or beyond the hard sciences. So including people like philosophy, in the fields of philosophy and ethics, and to talk about what does it even mean to be ethical in the field of AI, of data science, of agriculture, right? Is it ethical to take data from a farmer's land and make it available to large companies that then use it to build their own models to sell things to people, or to corner markets, or whatever it is that companies do? Is that ethical? If the farmer knows what they're doing, maybe. If they have no idea or don't understand, maybe not. And I think you're going to get a lot of different answers from pretty much any two people are going to have a slightly different answer, or maybe very different answer. So I think these are big, complicated topics that need to be discussed. And I really appreciate this sort of forum for doing just that.
These are the discussions that we need to take to the GLF on September 17th, the GLF Africa. And now that we have this framework and this discussion around not only what it's legal and what it's ethical, but also the challenges that the three of you already discussed and explained to us, I wanted to ask Mr. Munyama, what do you see as the most important next steps for fostering innovation and inclusivity in AI, particularly in the agri-tech sector in Africa?
Right. Thank you so much. Well, I think this is probably speaking, having worked in my country, where even just having a technical tool or a business in line with AI is a bit skeptical at first, because there's not much awareness around AI itself. So I think the critical important thing to do right now is to advocate for the use of AI in decision making. I can say that in farming, there's a lot of guesswork. And currently, right now in Zambia, we're experiencing a drought. Our hydroelectric power system is shutting down because of no water. Our plants are dying. Our crops are not growing because of climate change. And we cannot be doing the same usual farming processes because the world is changing. So my immediate effort is to advocate for tools that will create systems that will help our farmers make the right decisions, whether on how to grow, how to plant, and when to actually water their plants and apply fertilizer. So I believe that taking an active role in the decision-making process of farming, or agriculture, or agri-tech and forest lands will actually be beneficial for us as a country, as a continent, and as a world. Another thing I would like to say is that in the terms of forest sector, Zambia loses about 300,000 hectares of forest land per year. That is from tree cutting to charcoal production and just basic farming processes. So I think there's a lot of awareness that is required, and the benefits that can come out of it to shift the minds of the farmers from being passive consumers to active creators of our own technology. So I think that for me, that's the main thing I can advocate for at the moment.
Mrs. Makati?
Yes. So I think to add on that as well, most African, especially in the rural areas, view agriculture as a cultural thing or something that is very traditional. So we have to be careful when we're introducing these new technologies and to understand that they believe their ways have been working for them for so many years. So we cannot just come in and say AI can make this better for you, can do ABC, but also understand that they have their own traditional ways of doing things and try to incorporate that in the new systems of AI. So I would say the first thing will also be to educate farmers, make them understand why AI could help in the decision-making process of improving agriculture, and how you are not like erasing that traditional way of doing this, because sometimes it can be attachment to say my great-grandfather has been doing this for years, it has been working, and we need to like find a common ground. Isaac was talking about collaboration, and these are the kind of opportunities that could also bring in AI and also bring in the traditional way of doing things so that they work together. Maybe AI is not the solution that we need for some farmers, but we need to understand how they do that work and then say, this is how AI can help from this to this, and you can use your own way of doing this. So not necessarily erasing how things have been done, but trying to see how AI can improve on that. But definitely educate, talk to the farmers, make sure that you are transparent about what you are doing with the AI, explain your models, even if one thing that computer scientists like doing is being so vague about what the technology is doing, but that's the reason why people are afraid of AI, because we are not explaining exactly what it does. Now, everybody's thinking of Terminator when you talk about AI, but once you explain exactly how this AI will help in your farming, I think that's where the collaboration and the opportunities will come from. Thank you.
Thank you. And in that regards, and how to make sure that communities are seeing the benefits, but also how experts working in this field can also understand and approach in the right way rural communities. I've seen that there are some other projects going on in Africa, not only related to agriculture. For example, I read an article published by AstraZeneca that they are using AI to optimize the AstraZeneca forest restoration program in Africa. Basically, they made a pledge to plant up to 6 million trees in Western Kenya. And I wanted to ask the three of you, how can these learnings from specific projects, since you've been working on specific projects in Africa, will this project teach us? What are these projects also? What are these projects about? And what can we learn from these initiatives of AI using AI for landscape restoration or for food systems in general? Can we start with Mrs. Makati? And
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. The question is, how can we learn from the use of AI to restore land? I think what we can learn is if they do have the results, what are they using those results for? And how does the AI actually work with the local communities? One thing I'm very passionate about is understanding how the local communities feels about these technologies coming in. And something that we can learn from the AI restoration process is, what is the local community doing to help in this process? Secondly, what are the people coming with technology doing to explain how this works for the local community? And thirdly, what are the end results? How is this going to be sustained for the foreseeable future? Yeah. Thank you.
wonderful. Thank you. I was sharing that. Definitely, it's key and it's fundamental to understand community dynamics and the territory dynamics itself. Mr. Munyama?
Thank you. I was gonna also re-echo the fact that as we use these tools to restore the forests, these forests or these landscapes have actually people living in them, people who utilize these areas for food and shelter and for livelihood. So I believe the fact that we need to involve them in the process and make sure that they understand why you're doing that, because we've seen so many organizations, businesses visiting these places, collecting data, but when you ask the people living in those areas, they have no idea what's going on. So I think taking an active role in informing the people in those areas would actually be beneficial, because they would also support you because they know that land very well. So I believe working with them would also be productive for, you might even learn more insights actually from the people living there, because they've been living there for so many years. So I'm just echoing what Makati shared as well. Otherwise, I agree with what she said. Thank you.
Thank you. And Isaac?
Yeah, thank you. I've seen quite a number of applications that are really some AI uses that are really very interesting, and you know, I wouldn't draw out any one particular one, but I would mention that at the university I led a project where we did a survey of online publicity about, or discussions or descriptions about AI projects. And we aggregated 300 AI projects from across the continent in every sector. And agriculture actually was one of either the top or one of the top sectors in which AI is being used, which I think is interesting in itself, because I think that's not the case in, for example, the United States or Europe. I think that AI uses tend to be very practical and sort of close to the people, to use a kind of an odd term, but they tend in Africa to be across the continent to be solving problems that are facing a lot of people, because agriculture is, of course, the largest employer on the continent. So when you focus so much attention on different applications, you're going to be helping so many people potentially, right? If the app itself is good, if the use is good, then you can really have quite a big impact. So I was really very pleased to see that that it's not just a replication of the kind of uses that you see, search engine optimization type or recommendation engines that you see, or that are very common or popular in the United States and Europe and all that. It's really much more how can AI be used to solve real problems of people, everyday problems. So
Thank you, Isaac. And well, we have a comment from Margaret in LinkedIn that she says that education, co-creating and co-implementing, combining different forms of knowledge. And I think that aligns pretty much to what Mrs. McAtee was telling us and how to approach communities. And that is why I wanted to ask you, Mrs. McAtee, since you're a researcher and a young person as well, what advice would you give to young women or students aspiring to enter the field of AI and technology, especially in spaces that can be perceived as male-dominated industries?
Thank you for the difficult question. But I think when I first decided to focus on AI, because I'm from an engineering background, I was into robotics, and I got exposed to the field of AI by attending conferences, the Deep Learning Endeavor Conference and the Black in AI Conference. And that opened my eyes to how AI is just not this beautiful thing that we were told that it was, or that it can change the world. It also has harms. And that kind of like touched me, because they are talking about data, how this data can be used, how it can also has bias towards certain groups. And my goal was to say, like, I want to be a part of this, and I want my people to be represented. So in order for my people to be represented, I need to be part of the conversations about how these models are built. I think that's one thing that was motivating me to join or to pursue a career in artificial intelligence. So to the young girls out there, I would say, nobody's going to speak for you. So if you want to see change in whatever field that you want to be a part of, whether it's AI in finance, AI in climate change, or AI in healthcare, your voice has to be heard. And for the only way, or one of the ways your voice can be heard, if you understand the technology, you're part of the conversations that talk about how we build these systems. You are part of the people that build these systems. And it's very important when you think of it from that way. It kind of eliminates all this, oh, this is only for men, but more and more it's like, but my voice is not being heard. Um, I'll give an example of medicine. Most of the data sets that we have about how the human body works is just the male body. And recently, a couple of years ago, it's only then that the female body was actually studied. So that will just give you the motivation just to have your voice heard is very important in choosing your career or choosing what you want to make, how you want to make impact in the world. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that advice and for that reflection as well. And in the same line, Mr. Munyama, I wanted to ask you, as an entrepreneur and advocate for youth empowerment, what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs in Africa who want to make an impact in agriculture and sustainability through technology?
All right, thank you. I will also just share that I think we as Africans, or Africans, we have a huge task to be active creators of our own solutions, of our own technologies, because for the longest time we've been passive consumers of it. So sometimes we consume technologies that actually do not reflect our problems here. So I think my advice is, just as my parents or your parents taught you morals, etiquette, safety, discipline, what if we could teach the youths a lifelong ability to innovate? I think for me, I advocate for education, practical education. That is where you have access to the tools for you to learn, access to information, because professionally, I have a background in forestry. That is my first degree, but I've been a self-taught developer for all these years. Then it's only now that I actually pursuing a master's in computer science. So for me, it's what actually drove me to this place is creativity, and also just being inquisitive about how does this work? Or how can I solve my grandfather's problem in this farm? So my advice would be, take a leap of faith. I think we've got so many problems that need the youth to actually solve. And it starts with that step of curiosity. So I think for me, that would be my advice to my fellow youths and also entrepreneurs coming up in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Isaac, and with this, I will be wrapping up this part of the interview. I wanted to ask you as well, what advice would you give to young people, the ones to make some sort of impact and change and decision-making or policy-making processes, and wants to engage in the conversation of what's legal, what's not, what's ethical, what's not, and how can we reflect upon your learnings and all of the insights that you shared with us today?
Yeah, thank you. I have not been a youth for a very long time, but I will speak to the youth, which I engage in the classroom, of course. And of course, my answer will be very biased, but I think that it's very important for the youth to consider going very deep in education, and by that I mean, there are hundreds and thousands of people who can, program an AI system that will do, an app, a basic website, a basic app, those sorts of things. That, a lot of that you get through open source, through online tutorials. You can get to that sort of fundamental basic level, even with a bachelor's degree in computer science, that you can get to that level. And there are so many people that are at that level. But I would encourage people who really want to make a difference, and especially talking with policymakers, and then leading in their field. Go beyond that. There are master's programs, there are PhD programs. Africa does not have enough people with PhDs in computer science that can build very complicated systems and understand complicated systems and be leaders in this field rather than users of technology that are being developed elsewhere. I would say we really need to and I know this is a big ask, because it's difficult to say I'm going to do a PhD. That's very difficult to even access. It's expensive, but I would really encourage people to try and look for opportunities to do that. That they do exist. They're hard to find, but they do exist. And the more people we can get into those, and I also call on policymakers to create more such opportunities. But the more people we can get to do that, I think the better the continent will be.
Very valuable. Thank you, Isaac, and thank you to also Mrs. Makati and Mr. Munyama for your insights and for being with us today. With this, we wrap up the GLF Live. Thank you for joining us and for being here with us learning about AI. However, this conversation doesn't end here. We will be also approaching AI and the debates around ethics and everything on September 17th during the GLF Africa event that will be taking place virtually online and also in Nairobi in person. And you can find more information on our social media channels as well as the Global Landscapes Forum website. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our amazing speakers, and see you again soon in another GLF Live conversation.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Can Africa lead the world's restoration? With its vast natural resources, young population, innovations and technologies, Africa has an unprecedented opportunity to restore its degraded landscapes and pave a sustainable way forward for all of humanity. However, the region faces significant challenges, from land degradation and climate impacts to equitable financing and green governance. Just and multifaceted approaches are needed to restore its landscapes. On the 17th of September, let's learn how locally led sustainable solutions are making a difference. Meet action-oriented stakeholders, including local communities, researchers, private sector actors, and youth networks. Delve into vital topics like finance for biodiversity, sustainable food systems, and protecting rights and livelihoods. Engage in discussions on landscape restoration and the role of technology in driving sustainability. Be part of the solution. Register now for GLF Africa and join us in person and online as we look to greening the African horizon.